in the rest of the Arab world, there are people like you?
Yes, we contacted some people from Tunisia, and they were interested. We didn't have the means to invite them to the Moroccan Jewish Days because we don't have budget. The budget was, we have the Kivunim who was our sponsor, but others people from Moroccan Jews like the family Devico, who helped us also. And we didn't have enough budget to invite them, but they are really interested. I know people from Tunisia that wanted to assist with us in the conference.
And students on campus who come from other Arab countries, come from Africa, are any of those students interested in your work as well?
We have, after the conference, we have people from Cameroon, an African country, join our Mimuna Club. And we had a woman, a girl from United States also. And we had attract other Arabs from Syria and from Saudi Arabia. They are asking about the club and also about Muslim from France. They want to join the club, and they are really interested about the club.
So it's you could say that you're leading a revolutionary movement.
Not really, no.
Only in this audience. Anyone streaming who's listening, you know? So, Elizabeth, I want to ask Elizabeth, when you listen to this, like what he's describing, the aftermath, and after all, there's an aftermath for you too. You went back to Sweden, and then you went back to your home in Israel. You spoke to your neighbors and your family and your friends. How do people react to your story?
Well, where to begin? Your question, please.
How are people reacting to your telling them this story of your experience now when you think back? After all, this is the follow-up that Mehdi's experiencing in Morocco. What about you?
I was very, first of all, when I went home, I started to think about Mehdi. I was sure that somehow you are going to have difficulties to begin with after the honeymoon, the first week. And I was very anxious to hear that you were okay. I understood through Peter's we had some mails that you are okay. And hearing what you just told, the waves that you made, because you made waves all around the Arab world, and you got negatives, but you got very many positive responses as well. It makes me feel very thankful, and I'm very glad that I went to your university.
But I assume you've talked about this with your friends and your family, so what's their reaction?
Well,
you're in Israel, you come to Israel and you sit down for dinner with your friends and they say, what did you do last week?
I went to Israel for Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, as you know, and my grandson got married, so I was very busy. Everybody read the Haaretz, and they knew about it, my friends, and they were very proud that I could make it, and they felt very positive about it. We have friends who visit Morocco, and they wanted to know absolutely everything about your university, and maybe one of these days they are going to come and visit you. Maybe they are going to want to maybe support you.
That would be great.
In Sweden, it's different. We live mostly in Sweden. We are in Israel short time. In Sweden, it's different. We are going to have a response was very positive. We are going to have meetings about it. As you know, it was the holiday season, and straight after I left for Israel again with the Swedish mission, and I flew here the day before yesterday from Israel after finishing with the Swedish mission. So we are going to have meetings about my visit to Ifrane, and we are going to publish in a Jewish publication, and I'm going to tell the story of my meeting with you and your wonderful friends and the lovely, lovely young lady.
So let me tell you something about Laziza. She referred in her interview, you may recall, to an experience of her that she had of anti-Semitism. So the story that she told me, you'll correct me, was that she spent a summer living in Paris with some friends.
No, she was living in Paris for 3 years.
Why don't you tell the story?
No, you can.
No, because it's really...
No,
but keep correcting me.
okay.
She lived in Paris for 3 or 4 months?
3 years.
3 years?
3 years.
Boy, did I get the story wrong. It's even worse. And when she was in Paris, she was living in a neighborhood which was a Jewish neighborhood. Correct? And one day she came out of the house. So you saw, she describes herself when she's telling this story. She says, you know, I look a little Jewish. Right? The dark hair. Okay. I don't know what she meant by that exactly. That she was beautiful. That's what she meant, right? So she came out of the house, and an old Parisian woman was walking by, and she said to her in French, obviously, it was clean here before the Jews were here. Huh? Thinking that she was a Jew.
She told them Paris was clean where the Germans were here.
And the Germans were.
Germans.
Okay. So imagine, in other words, Laziza left that experience having really experienced anti-Semitism. And Mehdi received this poster. And it was a poster that had some work went into it. It wasn't just somebody throwing something. It wasn't like graffiti. It was a full poster with a picture, very nice picture, of Adolf Hitler at the bottom. And this quote that Mehdi said, when is Maimuna's next meeting? We hear they need a new advisor, Hitler. So I said to Mehdi when I was extending the invitation and he sent me this poster, I said, you know, if you don't want to come to New York, I will understand. And he said what he said to you. After getting this poster, I am more resolved to come to New York and to continue this work. But I said to him, he and Laziza have both experienced more anti-Semitism in their lives as Moroccan Muslim Arabs than I have as a New York Jew, traveling all over the world. I've never experienced anything like either of these two things. It's amazing.
And also Hassan, the co-founder of the club, some friends of him don't talk with him because he is involved in Mimuna Club, and they told us the Jews and the building where the majority of Mimuna's clubs are living is the 36th building in AUI. They told it the Mallah, it's like the Jewish ghetto because we are living there.
Now, what are the things that we need to do? So the first question that I just want to plant in your head is the following. If all these years, the story of what King Mohammed V did had been known, both in the Jewish world and as a result on the public record everywhere in the world, would it be possible, for example, for there to be an Arab leader, as there is today, who would deny that there is such a thing as a Holocaust? Because if he took such a position in the face of knowing what the king had done, isn't it logical to assume that such a statement would be considered in Morocco, certainly, as an insult to the memory of the king? And what's the lineage of the King Mohammed V? What does he trace his history back to?
To the Prophet.
To the Prophet Muhammad. So now imagine, again, just imagine a world in which the story of what King Mohammed V did for the Jews was on the public, visible record. Everybody knew it. Is it conceivable that there would be Holocaust denial, in particular in the Arab world? Number two, if there were knowledge and recognition of these actions of the king, they were on the public record, would there not be a difference between the way in which we look as Jews at the Arab world and, frankly, the way the Arab world looks at Jews? In other words, wouldn't there be at least the possibility that there would be some dynamic difference, even minimal, in the realities that control all of us? They control us here, and they certainly control everyone in the Middle East. There's at least the potential that this story, having public recognition, contains in it kernels of something which we desperately need and seek, and we don't have. So the significance of their work is very big. Now, I want to tell you something that you really may not believe. The members of the Mimuna Club have indicated two interests, because they're not radical enough. A, they want to pay a visit to Auschwitz. Number two, they want to come with us. Am I allowed to say this on the public?
Say it.
They want to come with us to Israel too. In other words, they want to see reality. They want to overcome the walls of seclusion and of blindness, not with a naivete, with a recognition that, of course, there are problems between Arabs and Jews. But they have decided, in the proverbial way that we keep quoting and we don't live by, they want to be part of the solution and end their being part of the problem. Young people, yes, it's correct, he meets with opposition. Let's say 50%, 50%. But the 50% who are on the other side, this is remarkable. When you go home, look up, Google Project Aladdin, a combined Christian, Muslim, Jewish project based in Paris, a website that is translating Holocaust literature and history into Arabic, because their leadership, amongst whom is Andrea Azoulay, realized that in the whole Arab world, none of these documents, none of these history books, none of these books of literature, of personal experiences exist in Arabic. And in fact, Joel, the Shoah Foundation that you are so very much involved with, Stephen Smith just said to me that one of the things that they now want to do is begin to translate their materials on the website, which is the whole Spielberg Shoah collection, into several languages, Arabic being one of them. It's a little naive of us not to have thought of this a little earlier, but okay, the time has come. And these are moments when this kind of remarkable person has the capacity to really do some things that will make a tremendous difference for everyone, for everyone. Are you prepared to take a leading role in this process, Elizabeth?
Well, Peter, we have just so much time. And given my age, so I hope I can see these young people coming to Israel. And I assure you that I'm going to welcome them in my home.
Okay. That's a good piece. Now, we'd like to take some questions from you, but I've decided that before...
Thank you so much.
This is very much for the two of them, your applause. But I I decided I do want to read this proclamation, because I want you to hear it, not just read it. I want you to hear it, and I want it to sort of help us set a tone for questions. And what we're going to do in questions... Where did that come from? He says he got this cough in New York. Can you imagine such a thing? How could anybody in our town get an allergic cough? So when we begin questions, we're going to take questions, not speeches. And we're going to take a bunch of questions, and then we'll answer them after we have 4 or 5 on the table. But here are the words of King Mohammed VI, the grandson of Mohammed V. Praise be to God, may peace and blessings be upon his prophets and messengers. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, he wrote this when the Aladdin Project opened its website, so he refers to that right away. What a choice and what a responsibility to call on Aladdin's myth to invite us to ponder collectively and differently on one of the most tragic and inexpressible stigmas of modern history. It is indeed a responsibility, an unusual choice, because none of us, ladies and gentlemen, can claim to have an understanding of the Holocaust that is all-encompassing, absolute, and without concession or compromise. Such concession or compromise would be dictated by the speculations of the moment or by the frailties of a guilty memory because it is deliberately selective. Amnesia has no effect on my understanding of the Holocaust or that of my people. In fact, we perceive it as a wound to the collective memory, which we know is engraved in one of the most painful chapters in the collective history of mankind. People other than myself can rightly point out in this respect that when it comes to the Kingdom of Morocco, this assertion is not new, nor is it merely spoken words. The reason I say this today, Aladdin, your reflection group, sets for itself the priority objective of finally telling the rest of the world how Arab and Islamic countries such as mine resisted Nazism and said no to the barbarity of the Nazis and to the villainous laws of the Vichy government. The community of nations has for long accommodated itself with a selective reading of the history of this dark and regressive era, a reading that allowed all fantasies to flourish by default. In what history or civic education textbooks used in the West is it taught that Morocco had opened its doors as early as the 1930s to European Jewish communities who had seen the peril looming on the horizon? In what institutes or intellectual forums in Europe or the United States is the exemplary and historic attitude of my late grandfather, His Majesty King Mohammed V, blessed be his soul, discussed? Notwithstanding the implacable realities of the French protectorate, which severely constrained his power, His Majesty managed to oppose the enforcement of the racist Vichy laws against Moroccan citizens of Jewish faith. Each of you will understand that when I call for an exhaustive and faithful reading of the history of this period, I do not merely do justice to actual facts. We live in a time which is not neutral, a time in which the collective imagination of all of our societies is also fueled by the prospect of exclusion and failure when it comes to the promises of dialogue between our civilizations, our cultures, and our religions. Hence, we must together endeavor to reassert reason and the values which underpin the legitimacy of a space of convivencia, of coexistence, where the words of dignity, justice, and freedom will express themselves in the same way and will coexist with the same requirements, regardless of our origins, cultures, or spiritualities. This is our interpretation in Morocco of the duty of remembrance dictated by the Shoah. In its depth, as much as in its tragic specificity, this duty of remembrance strongly imposes ethical, moral, and political standards which will tomorrow be the true guarantors of this peace, based on equally shared justice and dignity, and for which most Palestinians and Israelis yearn. Thank you, Mohammed VI, King of Morocco, the Royal Palace, Fez, March 18, 2009. It did not make the New York Times. Should. Okay. So we have some minutes for questions. Harry's got a mic. So again, questions, not speeches. Would you like to give the first question to the young lady who I so rudely held off? And introduce yourself if you're going to speak, but don't give speeches.
Okay. My name is Elise Lasri, and I was born in Morocco. And my father-in-law was was the president of all the Jews in Marrakesh, Morocco. And he went to that meeting with His Majesty Mohammed V. And 2 or 3 years later, he was awarded the highest medal, the Wissam Alawite, but by the King Mohammed V. And I still have now a copy of that document. Yeah, that's what I want. And all the Jews in Morocco knew what was said at that time, by the king.
And I just want you to know that I have told Sonia that I want you and she to come back, she also, to come back to Morocco with us to Marrakesh.
Oh, with pleasure, yes,
okay.
With pleasure. And I want to thank you so much for doing the Mimouna, that group in Morocco, because my husband and I, we came in 1966 with my 3 children, and we loved Morocco. I went back many times back to Morocco, and, it's still my country. It's still called my country, because we never lose that nationality,
By the way, my guess is that your father attended 2 meetings. This one, but there was another meeting that Serge Berdugo told us about as well that his father attended. His father was the president of the community in Meknes. And that meeting, you have to hear the details of. It's quite extraordinary. The king understood that the Jews were getting nervous and worried. And one night, in the middle of the night, he sent out his officials all over the country to bring the leadership of the Jewish community to the palace in the middle of the night. And he met with them in the middle of the night, and he told them, I will protect you as much as I will protect the members of my family. I want you to go back to your communities and tell the Jews of Morocco that they will be taken care of and they will be safe. So understand that when Berdugo desperately wants this designation of righteous of the nations, it's for quite powerful reason. At least 250,000 people could have ended up in those concentration camps and did not. And as a last aside, because in a certain sense we've recognized that Yad Vashem's designation has its own rules and its own operation and how it decides things, we're now working to achieve a recognition in a different form here in this country. And the idea, which anyone here who has ways to promote, we would be delighted to have you join this operation, is to create a very significant award to be presented to King Mohammed VI in honor of his grandfather's actions at our National Holocaust Museum by the President of the United States. And therefore put it on the public agenda here if it really isn't able to get into the public agenda in Israel. We really believe that the power of this will go way beyond just this recognition. Okay, we're taking some more questions.
I'd like to say something to what you just said, that it would be very befitting for this country to do that simply because historically Morocco was the first country to recognize the United States at its birth.
Right, yeah.
Very fast.
Yeah, we'll get...
Elizabeth, though you come from Romania and I come from Poland, I remember when a transport to my camp came to Sudetenland with 25 Hungarian girls who first were taken to Auschwitz, and because they couldn't be burned fast enough, They dropped them off in our camp. That was April 44. And as a result, they all survived. And I'd long forgotten it, truthfully speaking, until just you described that terrible time. And as you know, Polish Jewry started all that suffering much sooner.
Oh, I know.
But they did a very quick job on Romanians and on Hungarians. They did not waste any time on destroying them immediately, because those who were in camps had a much better chance to survive. Though the war started much earlier, they still had a better chance to survive than the Hungarian Jews or the Romanian Jews. So just to strengthen your own position on that, I was a witness to that. Now, my question to you is, do you ever feel threatened by the outside Arabic world that they may do damage to you?
We're going to take a few questions.
But
So keep
I'm
that in
really
mind.
finished. I'm finished. I just wanted to say hello to Elizabeth, and now I'm finished with that.
No, that's good. We're having that questions on. We're just going to take a few questions, and then we'll answer them in a group. Let's go to both sides, Harry. Don't be only a leftist.
Hi, Aliyah Cheskis Kotel, parent of one of the founding Heschel 28. Are you aware that there is a black Jewish community in Cameroon who did not know there were Jews anyplace else in the world? If you want to have your people be connected with those people, former Heschel parent Harriet Bograd will make that connection for you, or you know how to get in touch with me.
Great.
So.
Cameroon. Okay. See. Harry, come on this side.
Yes.
Yeah. No questions on this side? We want it to go, it has to go into the system. Otherwise, they won't hear you in Morocco.
I'm not sure how much you know about this. To answer the question, it's not
Who are you?
clear. I'm Stacy Sal, parent of one of the Heschel students in the high school. You mentioned how your grandfather had connections or knew a lot of Jewish people, and I get the sense from the way you're talking that you didn't have much of a connection with Jewish people until you started with this project. When do you think this separation happened, so that there is no more living together but separate peoples where one can protect or not the other?
Oh, no, it's not about that. The Jews left Morocco. By the 1960s, the community was, today it's under 5,000, and in the 1960s it slowly quickly dwindled from 275, 280,000 down to a few thousand. So you can't have contact.
Would that then be part of the reason why there's no history of the Holocaust in places like Morocco? Who would bring this story to the Moroccan people?
We'll leave that as one of the questions on the table. It's a good question. Okay, we have take two more questions, and then we'll try to answer these.
My name is Afridi. Assalamu alaikum, Al-Mahdi. This is Dr. Afridi. I'm a professor at Manhattan College, and I'm a Muslim, and I'm also the head of the Holocaust, Genocide, and Interfaith Center. And I want to congratulate you on your work, and I'm really sorry I couldn't make Morocco. But I do want to say there are Muslims that are working very hard in terms of Holocaust denial. Al-Mahdi, you and I should work together, and that's part of my mission as well. So I just want to say congratulations. My question to you, because I'm working on curriculum rebuilding in Muslim countries all over, not just Arab, who actually comes up with the historical curriculum in Morocco? Because I would like to know and get connected with that person. Thank you.
This wonderful professor, we actually invited to come to the conference. I'm very delighted that she was able to be here this evening. She has just become the head of the Holocaust Center at Manhattan College, and she herself is a Pakistani Muslim in background.
Sorry.
Your name?
I'm Marisa Fox Bevilacqua, the mother of a Heschel High School student. I have two questions. First, you were describing the difference in generational attitudes in Morocco, how with the older generation there was a little bit of anti-Semitism or a sense of what do you care about the Jewish population here. And the young people are interested, and it sort of reminded me of my recent experiences going... What's that? Oh, it's the other way around. So it's the older people who are fond of... Okay, so I guess I'm just curious, have you been able to change perceptions at all despite the recent acts of anti-Semitism? And also, what do you say? Or, one thing that I often hear is an equation of, Palestinian groups saying that what the Jews have done, in Palestine is like a Holocaust to them, and they're very quick to use that word. Have you encountered that? How do you deal with that?
All right, let's take these first questions, all right? So you want to start with the last question? That's always the easiest. You take, well, we'll remind you. You can take this question. Start with this one.
We have a differentiation between generation. The old generation had positive vision of the Jewish community, but the young people have a negative vision. We are working in changing those stereotypes with time by using, in some facts, the imam of the university is helping us, and we are explaining by using the true Islamic religion concepts to people that they can understand more, and other people who are explaining with them with like historiographer facts, like the conference. And about the Palestinian groups that you have talked, in my personal opinion, you cannot compare the two things. Holocaust is extermination with mechanically and in a large scale, and it's the most worst chapter in human history. You can probably compare the Armenian genocide, the Tutsi, and the Hutu in Rwanda, but not the Palestinian, because it's not really a genocide. It's a war between two peoples, the Arabs and the Israelis, Jews, and it's very different. You cannot compare both of them.
I would add, by the way, we were talking about this earlier, that this, if you don't have information, if you don't know what the substance of the Holocaust is, the word you can learn from a dictionary. And the word can then, of course, be used at any number of different kinds of horrible things that you see happen between people. The only way in which you can change that is if you create a generation who know what the substance is. And that's the task of the Mimuna Club. It's a gigantic task on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's something that can be turned around overnight. Because once you curricularize this, once it becomes part of the school system, the reality will begin to change. People will know something that they didn't know before. And of course, once we have peace in the Middle East, all of these things will also be affected in a very powerful way. And one of the things that I think we need to think about, if we are really people who believe that there is to be peace, then we also have to begin to work towards that peace, which means that we have to know more, not less, about the Arab world. We have to meet more people like El Mehdi in his homeland. We have to do what Elizabeth said. Yes, it was scary to go. And when you get to a place and you realize it's filled with human beings just like you, and that in turn changes everything. Well, there has to be more of that, not less of that. And there has to be knowledge of language and culture. And what we're trying to do on Kivunim with a group of college students every year is to make certain that that is part of their experience and that they carry it beyond. And by the way, if there are people here who are moved by the idea of these students being given the opportunity to go to Auschwitz and to take a trip to Israel to really break through the wall, we obviously, to enable these things, we need financial help. And we would be delighted to have people sponsor them because these things have to take place. We will not get any change if we sort of sit around and mope and pretend like things will happen in and of themselves by themselves. It will not happen. Okay, now we had a question. Your question, Mehdi wants to be reminded. You feel threatened by this opposition in the rest of the Arab world. Does it scare you?
It don't have to scare me because we are living only one life. And we are not living many lives. And every person have a duty to do in his life. And we are not like animals eating and sleeping. We need to do something better for the humanity. And what can happen? I don't have to be scared because we have only one life, and I'm not scared.
Because you have only one life. Because you have only life. You need to have that life to continue and to succeed.
Yes, that's why I'm doing what I need to do in my life, like an objective, a purpose that a meaning to my life, to do something for a better world, not to eat and sleep and say.
You're right. Did we answer? Did we answer these questions? So we're going to take. He'll be here. He'll stay as long as you need. But because we also want to conclude this Kristallnacht program, we'll take a couple of more questions, and then we'll conclude formally, and then Elizabeth and Al-Mehdi will be here to answer any questions, to talk to any of you who wish. All night if you wish, right?
Not on this chair.
No, not on that chair.
There is some.
Hi. I'm Susan Kornetsky. I'm a parent of a Heschel High School student. And I'm originally from the Washington area, and there was a fellow named Robert Satloff in the Washington area who authored a book which detailed different stories of different communities in North Africa, including Morocco, where Arab neighbors helped, protect or hide or, in some way try to prevent deportation or other acts of violence against their Jewish neighbors during the war years. And this, first I want to ask, if your group is familiar with that, if they've used that or read that. And the other question I have is, I remember when his book came out, I don't remember where he was being interviewed or something, but I remember that he got a lot of negative reactions, or he reported a number of negative reactions from Arab communities or Arab speakers who really aren't comfortable even hearing about it. And I wanted to know what you think, why it is that they really just don't even want to know about it. And is it because it doesn't fit in with some narrative that they want to believe in? But instead of it being a source of pride, it seems that they want to sweep it under the rug, that they ever were that compassionate towards their neighbors.
Do you want to answer that question? Go ahead.
We didn't read I didn't read personally the book of Robert Satloff, but he was participating with us in the conference via video conference, and we have shown his movie to the students in Akhawain, the movie of what's
called Righteous Amongst the Nations.
Righteous Among the Nation. I discover other Arab people from mainly from Tunisia and Algeria helping Jews during the Holocaust. But I'm not okay with him for his analysis about Muhammad V and Morocco, because he have a different analysis and different approach, and he was analyzing differently. That's why. But in the Arab societies, in Morocco, they welcomed the movie. However, he wasn't telling that Muhammad V was righteous among the nation. And the truth, he participated with us in a conference. And he was the welcome in Morocco.
And I would say, to understand that question, the relationship of the Arab world to the Holocaust has devolved over these years. Again, without stories like this being on the public record, on both sides, the entire story has devolved into the reality or the fantasy about the Holocaust that ended up creating a circumstance in which European powers gave Palestine to the Jews. So therefore, it falls into this complicated problem that is so far away from Morocco, for example, that it really should have nothing to do with these issues. And that's precisely what they're establishing. They're drawing a line. The issues in Israel and Palestine are Israel and Palestine, and the issues about the Second World War in Morocco are issues about the Second World War in Morocco. And the Holocaust is the Holocaust. But you can only get to those facts by education. That's it. One more question.
First, I want to thank El Mehdi for his moral and physical courage in doing what he has been doing and in being here tonight. My name is Michael Sucher. I'm the president of the East Midwood Jewish Center, a conservative egalitarian synagogue in the heart of Brooklyn. My question is this. You talked about having an encounter with leadership of your university. Now, 30 years ago, there was no such thing as Holocaust education or a Holocaust curriculum. Is there now a Holocaust curriculum at your university? And if not, have you had, and can you tell us what kind of success, if any, you've had in attempting to create such a curriculum in seeding that idea in your local university?
In our university, we don't have a curriculum about the Holocaust, but we have like history classes and American professors teaching history classes that teach the Holocaust, that it happens and how it was. It's like, but it's too short. It's not very important. But they don't talk about what Muhammad V have done during the Holocaust also. Then we have bring the idea to the administration and to other historian in Morocco, but the problem was we could not do that after the problem with Palestine and Israel be resolved. This is the big problem that stop us. I am for two-state solutions for Palestine and Israel, but I want to let this apart from the problem of the Holocaust. It don't need to be linked what is happening in the Middle East and to teach the Holocaust in our university, and what also our Majesty, late Majesty, have done during the Holocaust.
And I just want to add as an interesting aside, on the second day of the conference, when the conference was over, a woman came up to speak to me, and she started to speak to me in fluent Hebrew. But it was clear from the way she looked, that she was not Jewish, and I was sort of in shock. I said, where did you learn to speak Hebrew? She said, I decided it was important for me to know Hebrew, and I found one of the community rabbis, and he's been teaching me in a fluent Hebrew. So then I said to her, well, what do you do? She said, I'm the main newscaster on the evening news on Channel 2, which is one of the main channels in the country. The main channel, okay. So then I said, well, what are you doing here? She said, I have made it a personal mission that I want a Holocaust curriculum to be established in the high schools in Casablanca, and I'm actually on my way now. She said a few weeks from now I'm going to Krakow and to Auschwitz. I've been invited by this Aladdin project to see these sites myself, and I am working on this independently. And then when I heard about your conference, I got all excited that I had at least 2 other people who were going to join me. Little did she know the power of one of these 2 people. And we were talking this week about how now you use a connection like that. This is a woman who has a big audience and is a powerful voice. But I think it's incumbent upon all of us to remember that, as you suggested, but I'm not sure we all got it, that Holocaust education did not come in the 1950s to the United States. It didn't even come to Jewish education. It took a while for us to figure out what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. And even here in the Heschel School, we have had an evolutionary process of how we deal with this whole question. is complicated. So it's going to be complicated in Morocco. But we're on the way. Okay, so I would like to conclude this portion. We're going to end with a memorial prayer on Kristallnacht, but I want to thank these two people. I want to thank these two people in a really powerful way. Elizabeth, for the whole business, for accepting my invitation to come to Morocco, trusting us that you would be in the right place at the right time and safe, having the courage to do that, which I know took courage. And then once you got there, to being the magnetic, magical presence that you were for all of the students who heard you. And all of them, the Americans and the Moroccans, all reacted exactly the same way. We interviewed all of them the next day on Friday, and they all had the same reaction. And El Mehdi, to you, this little tap on my shoulder almost a year ago was such a privilege. And as I said to you in the car, I've spent almost all my life had the privilege of working with teenagers and college students. This is a real privilege, our friendship. And I will always treasure it. And I thank you for having an additional courage to come here and participate in this program at the Heschel School. You do us all proud by being here. You do us all great pride. Give us great pride. All right? I have your... You have to be. Would you all please rise for the El Malei Rachamim? El Malei Rachamim. Have a mic? Yeah. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Ba'amromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanafei HaShechina B'mahalot Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Harakia Mazehirim Et Nishmot Kol Acheinu B'nei Yisrael Anashim, Nashim V'taf Shenehergu V'shenitbechu V'shenitzrefu V'shenechneku Began Eden Tehei Menuchatam Ana Bal HaRachamim Hastirem B'seiter Kenafecha Li'olamim Utzeror B'tzeror HaChaim Et Nishmotehem Adonai Hu Nachalatam V'yanuchu V'shalom Al Mishkevotehem V'nomar Amen. Kol od balevav pnima nefesh Yehudi homiha ulefatei mizrach kadima Ain letzion Sophia Od lo avda tikvateinu Ha-tikva shenot alpayim Li'otam chovshi be'artzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim Li'otam chovshi
be'atzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim. Good evening.